Hey, Shalom Markins, Rakamak from GMS London, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Chachadash. Want to give double honors unto the elders, the apostles of GMS, and Shalom out there to the hopeful elect, pushing this truth in all sincerity. Back again with another video. I'm going to entitle this one GMS are bringing the true light of the Gentiles. Okay, or got the true light to for the Gentiles, you know. Something along those lines. Right, because it seems there's whole lot of confusion, you know, in the world. You know, I was gonna say Israelite space, because we've got, you know, the Genesis lately come doctrine of, you know, Gentiles can receive limited salvation, right? So the heathen, the other nations can receive salvation with the Israelites. You got people that teach that, you know, Israel's been replaced. You know, the salvation is for anybody that believes, right? You got Israelite camps out there that believe that only the so-called Negroes can be saved. You know, you got to be dark as tar to be delivered, right? They don't accept you know, light-skinned Israelites or whatever Israelites from different parts of the world. Right? They've got other Israelite camps that don't accept you know, so-called you know, those with mixed lineage, so-called, right? Because they might have you know, a heathen mother or something like that. You know, they don't accept them, right? So there's a whole bunch of confusion of, you know, the Gentiles and who's allowed in, who's not allowed in, right? So there's a whole bunch of confusion. Only the men of GMS have got it right, right? Only the men of GMS are shining that light for the Gentiles to follow, right? Because we carry the doctrine of Yahweh Shai, because Yahweh Shai is the ultimate one that, you know, is the ultimate light. Okay, and that is the same, you know, the same word, the same understanding that we've been given, right, to shine as a light unto the Gentiles, so that they may be brought in, right, of the Lord's elect, right? Because that's what it's only about, in, you know, in the end anyway, is the Lord's elect, right? Not everybody can be saved in the nation of Israel, right? But damn sure these heathens are not being saved. These you know, these natural Gentiles, as we call them, right? But only the Israelite Gentiles, right? And so I was going to go through a few scriptures today. I kind of got lost in the source while I was putting this lesson together, because I kind of got caught up in another lesson in the middle of another lesson. So I got scriptures all over the place. So they might not be the most coherent, but Lord willing, you know, you'll find this edifying. And I might have to make a separate video on another topic within this topic. You know, concerning the mystery of the Gentiles, man. Because there's so much scriptures, man. There's so much scriptures, you know, concerning the Gentiles, and, you know, the Israelites being the Gentiles, right? You know, that, you know, you could be here all day breaking down scriptures, but no, I'm trying to keep that separate from this video. So, you know, let's just kick it off, right? So I want to start off here in Isaiah 42. I'm going to read from verse 6, right? And it says, I, the Lord Yahweh, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thy hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles, right? A light is like a guide, right, to give instruction to the Gentiles, right? So bear in mind, right, because I'm not going to get into all this right now, but Israel have been scattered. Israel have become foreign, or a lot of Israel have become foreign to their own identity, to their own inheritance, to their own nationality, right? They've become foreign, right? And that's simply all the word Gentile means, is a stranger, is a foreigner, right? And Israelites have become foreign to their own nationality, much like all of us growing up in this era didn't grow up being an Israelite. I didn't grow up being, you know, having the knowledge of Israel, having the customs and so on and so forth, right? We've all become these Gentiles, these foreigners, right? That are of Israelite descent. We just didn't know. We were ignorant. We was blind. It was in darkness. All right. So, right, it says to give for a light of the Gentiles, right? To open the blind eyes, right? And these blind eyes just represents ignorance, right? Because obviously we can see, brothers can see, but we was in ignorance, we was in darkness, right? But Yahweh Shah was set up to bring us in, or to bring us back in, which is an important term. Bring us back, to return us, to redeem us. All these, infer of bringing us back to something that we was once a part of. Right? It says to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. Okay. So again, this is what the Gentile, this light to the Gentiles is speaking about, bringing the whole of Israel together. Right? Not those, because you still had Israel in this time that were, that knew they were Israelites, but you had many that were far off, man. Especially during the Greek period, right, where people just opened up, up and left to become like the heathen. All right, but like I said, I'm not going to go into all that right now, because like I said, there's just plenty of scriptures that explains all this whole Gentile situation. All right, but I want to jump down to verse is it 15? Where is it? All right, let me grab 16 here, right? So now we'll bring the blind, right? Because we just mentioned about, the darkness, the blindness, right? How, the Lord was going to open our eyes, right? With this word, by the way. Okay, which I'm going to get to, right? But it says, verse 16, I will bring the blind by a way that they knew not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do unto them, and not forsake them. Talking about the children of Israel, right? Because he promised not to forsake us. They shall be turned back, right? Like I said, it was something we were a part of, okay, being under the Lord's covenant, but we just didn't know. We didn't know about it. We've grown up, living our lives not knowing we was part of the Lord's, part of the Lord's children, and that we was under His covenant. We didn't know, right? They should be turned back. They shall be greatly ashamed that trust in graven images, that say to the molten images, ye are gods, right? We grew up serving other gods, right? Hear ye deaf and look ye blind, that ye may see. Who is blind but my servant, right? We know Jacob/Israel is the servant of the Lord, right? That's what he was chosen to be, right? So who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as the Lord's servant? Seeing many things, but thou observest not. Opening ears, but he heareth not. All right. And so there's a few precepts I want to just bring out on this before I carry on with the core of the lesson. And it is Luke 4:21, right? Just to cover those couple of things we just mentioned in Isaiah 42 just there. Where was 21? Right. So how much I spoke about this, right? Let's see. Verse Luke 4:18. Well, only start from 17, because it was just there, right? So, and there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet Isaiah, right? Which we're reading, Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of the sight to the blind, right? Right. This is not verbatim from what is we just read in Isaiah, but people, take this, what the Lord is saying, as if it's open to anyone that reads this book, right? Where the other, in Isaiah, it's clear that the connotation is directed at Israel. Okay, but because it uses the word like, preach the gospel to the poor. Well, anybody that's poor and is meek and humble can receive this. No, it's talking about the Israelites that are humble, right? That acknowledge the Most High and His word and His law, right? It says that, to preach the gospel to the poor, he have sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives and recovering of the sight to the blind, right? To bring them out of darkness, right? Out of ignorance, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord, right? The day of deliverance, right? So he closed the book and he gave it again to the minister and sat down, and the eyes of all them that were in the synagogue were fastened unto him. And he began to say unto them, this day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears, right? Because Yahweh was sent to, deliver the elect to Israel. All right. But obviously you know how that went down. Grab Romans 11 and 7. Right. So yeah, it says verse 7. It says, what then? Israel have not obtained that which he seeketh for, right? But the election have obtained it, right? So again, this is only for the elect of Israel, not the Gentiles, not the whole of Israel, because you've got other Israelites teaching that, they all in Israel needs to get together, but that's not the task either, but the election have obtained it, right? Israel have not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. The rest stayed in darkness, stayed in ignorance. Right, according as it is written, God have given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear unto this day. Right, which we just read. They are in darkness. All right, but let me jump down to verse 15 here. All right, it says, "For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, right, which the world is the world of Israel, pursuant to Isaiah 45 and 17, right." The world without end. This is talking about the nation of Israel, right? Who are promised the everlasting kingdom. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling, bringing back, of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy, right? And so people start talking all this Gentile stuff. Oh, or the branches and all this. But this is obviously not talking about. Well, this is obviously only talking about the nation of Israel. Right, the Gentiles can't be anybody but the children of Israel, right? As this is going to explain it, right? But in a parabolic type of way, right? For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy, and if the root be holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and fatness of the olive tree, boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Thou would then say, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off, right? Because of the unbelieving Israelites, right? And thou standest by faith, be not high-minded, but fear. For if God spared not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee, right? And so these Christians have been made to believe that, the natural branches are the Israelites, right? But these other branches that are being grafted back in are talking about the other nations. That's not what's going on here at all, right? This is right. So for God spared not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee, right? Because the wild olive branch, right, are the Israelites that grew up under different customs in foreign lands, speaking foreign tongues. Right? They grew wild. They grew up away, okay, from the main tree, right? Right, but it says that if the lump is holy, for if the first fruit be holy, the lump also is holy, right? Everything that comes from Israel is holy. Israel is a holy nation unto the Lord, right? So regardless of what's going on with them, whether they grew up, living life in a different land and worshiping different gods, they're still the Lord's fruit. All right, which is a precept I want to grab actually. I'll come back to this in a second. Jeremiah 2. Jeremiah 2. Oops, 3. Yeah. Right. Here's verse 3. It says, Israel was holiness unto the Lord and the first fruits of his increase. Okay. Israel is the Lord's first fruits, right? They are holy unto him. So all that devour him shall offend. So anybody that touches us, which goes into that scripture, he that touches or you touch the apple of the Lord's eye. Right? There's ramifications for doing that. Yeah, they might have been wicked. Yeah, they might be going off and they're being assholes, right? But if you do something to them, then the Lord will recompense that back to you, right? So that's what that scripture is saying, right? So Israel was holiness unto the Lord Yahweh, and the first fruits of his increase, all that devour him shall offend, evil shall come upon them, saith the Lord. Hear ye the word of the Lord, O house of Jacob, and all the families of the house of Israel. Right? We are that lump, that holy lump. Okay, the fruit of the Lord, right? What's even here? Romans 11. All right, where are we now? Back here, Romans 11, verse 22. Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God on them which fell. Severity, but toward thee goodness, if thou continue in his goodness, otherwise thou shalt be cut off. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in, right? So if you believe, you will be brought back, right? But the whole contention between the Jews in Judea and the Gentiles, i.e. the Israelite foreigners, is because these men believed and these men didn't. And so the gospel was being preached to them. And so they couldn't accept it. How can these men be saved? How can these men be saved? These men have been worshipping idols for X amount of years. They were traitors. Their family, their parents, their family were traitors to Israel. They jumped ship. Okay, they turned their back on the brothers. You know what I'm saying? On Israel, right? So they didn't want to accept them, and they didn't believe that they deserved this salvation, and they were being denied because of their unbelief. And that's why this whole thing is only spiritual. It's for those that believe. And again, this is for the elect, because the elect have been given that gift of faith, right? But the elect are not all in Judea. They're not all in one spot, right? Israel had been scattered throughout the whole, the four corners of the earth, right? And so the gospel had to be preached in all these different lands for the elect to hear it, right? So they can be brought back, right? This is So verse 24, if thou wert cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to the nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, which being the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? Right? Same tree, same plant, whatever, right? They're one. It's one lump. Okay, but they're being grafted back in, right? For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceit, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. Right? The elect weren't just in Judea, right? These Israelite Gentiles, these Israelite foreigners that grew up foreign, right, had to be brought back. Right? They were elect among them. All right? And coming out of these different lands, yeah, they were speaking weird, dressing weird, looking weird, different from the Jews in Judea. All right? But they were still Israelites. Okay, and like I said, that story applies to all of us now, because we've all grown up in different lands. Yeah, the bulk of us are in America. All the tribes are there, right? But remember, not even all the tribes were there in Jerusalem at the time, in Israel at the time, because their man already went over to the Americas, so they weren't even there to hear this, right? And so they were they were well foreign. We know the stories of how the man ended up, the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, and the different tribes of Gadden. All these they were going off, worshiping and doing all kinds of crazy shit. So they were gone, right? But there are men over there that needed to be brought back, and that was going to happen obviously in these end times, man, these latter times. But they're foreigners. They're foreign to Israel. You go over there. You go see some Aztecs, man. You go talk to them about Israel. They ain't gonna have a damn idea, a damn clue of what the hell you're talking about, right? They're ignorant. All our people, obviously, except for the ones that are woken up to at least some degree, right? They're ignorant. They're in darkness still. right? And the Lord is purposely left the ones that are not a part of this, part of this thing, not a part of the elect. He's left them blinded, right? But the elect, he has opened their eyes. This is what we were sent to do, right? Yahweh was sent to do that. He gave his word unto his disciples, i.e. the prophets and the apostles, right? And this is what we've been assigned to do, right? And this is what GMS has been, assigned to do, because we're men of the Lord, right? And so we hold the true light of the Gentiles, man, so that they can gather under Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, you know. Verse 26, and so all Israel shall be saved. So who has this been talking about the whole time? All these branches and the olive tree, the broken branches and being grafted back in it is all for the purpose of what? So all Israel shall be saved, that they can all come back and all return, right? So all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob, right? For this is my covenant unto them. We was reading about that covenant in Isaiah 42, right? For this is my covenant unto them when I shall take away their sins. Right? That's what it's all about, right? So this idea about these other heathens coming in and these Gentiles that believe, Genesis believing these Gentiles can believe and keep the law and all this madness, that's just simply not what's going on. It's simply not the truth, right? They're just here bringing confusion. But I said there's a whole bunch of confusion within the Islamic community and the wider world with this understanding to what the Gentiles or who the Gentiles is speaking about, right? We're the only ones that really push for the Israelite foreigners, right? A lot of you Israelite camps deny them. Oh, he's not black enough. Or you come from a certain place. Or you can't be an Israelite. You're a heathen. Without actually searching the spirit. It's because you're not equipped with the spirit, man. You're not equipped with it. You don't know. You're ignorant. You know? I read Jeremiah 2 and 3 already, didn't I? So let me get Romans 10. Right? 12. Right? It says, for there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek. Why? Because they're of the same lump. They're just foreign. They grew up foreign. They grew up in ignorance, in darkness. Right? Because it's funny, it only mentions Greek. It doesn't mention any other type of nation or because obviously the world was being run by the Romans at the time. All right. But Greek is specific, is really speaking specifically about the Jews that were Hellenized. Greek-speaking Jews. Right? But there's other people speaking different languages and had different cultures and stuff like that, but they are not mentioned here. But it's specifically talking about a specific point in time where Israel, there was a big separation in Israel. You can read about in the book of Maccabees. Like I said, I'm not going to go into that history right now. Brothers have done videos on it. I've done videos on it. You can go find that. But Israel left off to be Greeks, to follow the ways of the Greeks. Right? But it's being said here that there's no difference between us, the Jews in Judea, and these Greek-speaking Israelites, these Greek Israelites, man. There's no difference. We are the same people. Right? And that's, the Lord is calling unto them to come back. Right? But obviously the Jews in Judea didn't want to accept them, because they were branded traitors and foreign and, as branded as Gentiles. Right? Filthy and all this type of business, right? Uncircumcised, because they weren't circumcising themselves. So the circumcision was calling them the uncircumcised. Right? And so, that's like a token of your identity kind of thing, that's what we do as a people, right? To show that we're under a covenant with the Most High, But these men weren't doing all that. They're worshiping different gods and all that kind of stuff. So they were being rejected, right? But the Lord is like, no, like these, they're still my people, right? And I got men among them that are going to be, that are going to be saved, basically, right? So these are the Gentiles that the Bible's really speaking about. Is they're Israelites, Israelite Gentiles. All right. So for there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek, for the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Right? Again, among the Israelites, right? So how then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed, right? Because they lived in ignorance, worshiping other gods, right? And how shall they believe in him of him, believing in sorry, and how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And that's what we've been set up to do, to teach our people, right? Whether they hear or whether they forbear. But we're searching for the elect, those men among these, these other nations, to find the Israelites that believe, right? So we have to tell them something that they've never heard before, basically, and not that we have to convince them, but the Spirit is doing the work. We just we bring it out, and so we allow you to hear it. These other camps, man, they'll just dismiss you, because you say you're from, I don't know, some part of Africa, or you can't, you're just a heathen. This word's not for you. You will be destroyed or go into slavery or whatever, man. But you're not test the Spirit. You haven't done nothing. You just dismissed him based on how he looks or where he said he come from. But if the Israelites have been scattered throughout the whole earth, how do you know he's not an Israelite? Well, because he doesn't look like you, because he doesn't sound like you. That's not how it goes. Everything has to be done through the Word, through the Spirit. Right? But you, man, like I said, you just dismissive. You have to be open to the idea that anybody walking this earth could be an Israelite. But only the Spirit will reveal that. Verse 15, how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things. We bring good news to our people, right? Whether they want to believe it or not, but it's good news ultimately. The Lord is going to come and save his people and establish us as rulers in the earth. And that is, it's for you, right? It's you that believe. And this is what only separates us from everybody else, those that believe. And like I said, there is no heathen that is going to believe. There is no heathen that is going to believe, man. This hypothetical, fantastical Genesis breakdown, or the idea that there's a heathen out there that believes and keeps the law. Bro, it doesn't exist. The only ones that can believe, right, and keep the law to any level of degree, right, is Israelites. Now, if you can't discern that, or he's just a heathen because he said he's from China, if you can't discern that this guy is not really Chinese, then you're blind. You don't know what the hell's going on. You're ignorant. If you think that man is Chinese or he's this or that, you don't have no understanding, man. You have no discernment. These people that believe are in fact Israelites. They're just in darkness. They don't know. But the Spirit is going to reveal it, man. So verse 16, but they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah saith, Lord, who have believed our report? So then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Right? And this is what we're out there commanded to preach. Right? So the elect may hear. Because if you ain't out there, you ain't doing videos and all that kind of business, how are they going to hear? If we were not sent to go teach the gospel. Right? That means you got to teach men the gospel. You have to go into nations and teach the nations the gospel. Right? Not because you're trying to save them all. No, that was never the mission. It's because we're searching for the elect of Israel. Right? For those men that do believe. Right? But those men that consequently that do believe are Israelites. Because like I said, this one lump is all Israel. The branches is all Israel. Back in Romans 11, right? It's all Israel. Okay, all this talk about, bringing brought back and redeemed. It's all going back to things that we were a part of once. You can't bring someone back to something they were never a part of. That's something. That would be something completely new. You're not coming back to it. You're just starting something new. But that's not what we're talking about here. So those are those pieces I want to get off Isaiah 42. But I want to go to Isaiah 49 now. Nope. Get out of the way. Right, it's Isaiah 49 verse 3. And he said unto me, thou art my servant, O Israel. Right? I mentioned that earlier. Okay, the Lord's servant is the nation of Israel, right? It says, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Right? Then I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for naught. And in vain, yet surely my judgment is with the Lord, and my work with the Most High. And now, saith the Lord Yahweh, that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. Bring Jacob back. Bring him again to him. Right? To preach to them, right? Though Israel be not gathered, right? Because we were still scattered. Our kingdom was broken in two. Like I said, the 10 tribes, they went off into the Americas. We were all over the place, man. We're a very fragmented nation because of our transgressions. Right? So at this moment in time, we are not gathered together yet, but that process has been started. Right? Beginning with the elect. But like I said, our people refuse to accept or acknowledge who they are, and refuse to receive this word. Right? Which is how it's supposed to be, but we're still a fragmented group. All right, people, right? So to bring Jacob again to him, though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord, and my God shall be my strength. And he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob. That's the mission, to rise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel, i.e. the elect. Okay, to restore them back to remembrance, back to, having this truth. Right? I will also give thee a light for the Gentiles, right? Which are the other Israelites that are scattered, that are away from the bulk, especially in that time, the bulk of Israel, Judea. Right? That thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Right? Now, this doesn't mean that the Lord is looking to save the whole entire earth. Right? Israel is who's being saved, right? And Genesis will point out, there's going to be heathen that are going to be alive. Of course there is. Of course there's going to be heathens that are alive. Of course they're going to be, because who are going to be the servants? Who's going to build the walls of our kingdom? Who's going to bury the dead? Right? Because sure as hell ain't going to be us. All right, we've done that already. We've done that for you. We've done that to our own kingdom. And we've done it for your kingdom. And all these other heathen kingdoms we've done it for, right? It sure as hell ain't going to be us, right? You are going to be the servants in the new world, right? And that first period of 1,000 years isn't going to be, it's not going to be nice for you guys, right? So yeah, of course, people are going to survive, right? The judgment of the Lord, because you're being preserved for slavery. But that surviving is not salvation, right? All this limited salvation bullshit. Surviving is not salvation. Okay, you're not inheriting anything by surviving. Whereas the children of Israel, they're getting the kingdom, they're getting changed, they're immortal, they're gods, they're ruling. Like, what are you getting? You're just getting to live. Oh, great. That's no different for us being in slavery. Nah, that's a great deal. We just get to live and be servants. Like, how does that work for us? How's that a reward? The salvation is for the Israelites, right? The nations are meant to be the servants, right? And so there are going to be some servants that are going to, some nations are going to survive, or some people of the nations are going to survive to be servants, right? They're not going to be on equal terms of the Israelites. They're not going to be changed, right? They're not going to be living in a palace next to us. You know, none of that's going to be happening. All right. So I will also give thee a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation to the end of the earth, right? And I sure it was a precept that I had. Where did I have it? Is it this one? Cuts though. Okay, yeah, it's in here, right? Acts 13 says this, right? Like I said, there's so much precepts and cuts for all of this, but just so many. But I just want to get this point here in 47, right? It said, for so have the Lord commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou shouldest be for salvation unto the ends of the earth. Actually, that's just repeating. I said, okay, that's the precept for that, where it came from that. But where is that one I had then? This one? Yeah, okay. It's like, all right, it's in the same chapter, I think. No, it's in 43. Okay. Yeah, Isaiah 43, verse 6 here, right? It says, I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from far, right? And my daughters from the ends of the earth. It's because we're in the ends of the earth, right? Salvation is going to be seen everywhere because Israel is in all of the earth, right? And so salvation is going to occur in all the ends of the earth. Okay, it's not because the Lord is saving everybody, but because his children have been scattered in all these different lands. All right, that's all it is. Okay. So let me go back. 49. All right, verse 7, right? It says, thus saith the Lord, Yahweh, the Redeemer of Israel, and his Holy One, to whom man despiseth, to whom the nations abhorreth, to a servant of rulers, kings shall see and arise. Princes also shall worship, because of the Lord that is faithful, the Holy One of Israel, and he shall choose thee. Thus saith the Lord, in an acceptable time have I heard thee, and in the day of salvation I have helped thee. I will preserve thee, and will give thee for a covenant of the people, to establish the earth, to cause to inherit the desolate heritages. That thou mayest say to the prisoners, go forth, to them that are in darkness, shew yourselves, that shall feed in thy ways, and their pastures shall all be in high places. They shall not hunger nor thirst, neither shall the heat nor sun smite them, for he hath had mercy on them, shall lead them, even by the springs of water, he shall guide them. All right, yep. So I'll make all my mountains a way, and my highways shall be exalted. Behold, these shall come from afar, and lo, these from the north, and from the west, and from these land of Sinim, right? Which is similar to what we just read in Isaiah 43. Sing, O heavens, and be joyful, O earth, and break forth into singing, O mountains, for the Lord hath comforted his people, and will have mercy upon his afflicted. Right? But Zion said, because this is who's being spoken to, Zion, Israel. But Zion said, the Lord hath forsaken me, and my Lord hath forgotten me. Right? But it's being said here, the Lord hath comforted his people, and will have mercy on his afflicted. You know? My servant Israel. Right? So this is why the salvation has to go out to the ends of the earth. It's not because the Lord is saving the heathen, but it's because the Lord's children is there. All right. Let me get the book of Baruch. Where are you? Chapter 4, verse 37, right? And it says here, I'm going to start from verse 36, right? It says, O Jerusalem, look about thee toward the east, and behold the joy that cometh unto thee from God. Lo, thy sons come, whom thou sentest away, right? Who we scattered. They come gathered together from the east to the west by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the glory of God, right? So it's the word that's bringing everybody back, and it's the word that we've been given to do that job. Okay, we've been given the understanding, right? And so once we've not understood, this word, we go and teach, we go preach it, right? So the rest of the elect can hear, and Lord, we will be a part of that elect. But our job is to go out there and teach and fish for the elect, right? Our job is not to decide who the elect is. That's not how it works, But we're here to teach all nations essentially, right? And say it's not the case that this word is for everybody, right? For all nations to hear, but Israel is in all these nations, right? So you have to be mindful of that, right? When you're speaking to what looks like an Edomite, he might not be an Edomite, or if he looks Chinese, he might not be Moab. He might not be an Ammonite. He might not be a Hamite. You have to consider these things, man, because Israel's coming out of all these different places, looking like them, talking like them, dressing like them, right? So you have to be spiritual about it. And this is why everything's done through the word, through the spirit, not based on appearances. I said, you got groups out there that you have to be Negro only. You can only be African American to be an Israelite. How's that scriptural? You got to be dark skinned. How's that scriptural? Or because the Israelites are originally dark skinned. Okay, but what about now? Are they all dark skinned now? Can't be. Can't possibly be. We've been in these other nations for too long, far too long. There's no way we're going to remain or keep our original, features and complexion and all these different types of things. And there's just no way. Thousands of years we've been in different places. There's just no way. Right? But like I said, that's the carnal. That's the carnal minded view. Right? And so we have to sift through these people, sift through these nations with the word. Right? This is Romans 8 and verse 16. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the sons of God. You can only find that through teaching and preaching His word unto the nations, man. And this is the thing, like, even if they reject it, right? Even if they don't, it doesn't mean that they're not Israelites necessarily. But they say you might be able to tell that it's still Israelite, but they just reject this truth. But guess what? The majority of our people that you might deem as typical Israelites reject this truth. So it's not like we're just looking for the elect, man. The Lord can sort out the rest of that later. Okay, when they brought back in the kingdom as our children. But for now, all we're doing is looking for the Lord's elect. And so whoever is able to hear it, because my sheep hear my voice. There's nobody else that's going to come into this thing other than the Lord's sheep. There is no possible way anybody else can come into this truth. Right? You people are worried. Oh, you got Edomites in the camp, bro. If you can prove that, then fine, innit? But I mean, you can't even prove that you want Israelite. So it's like, what we're doing here. Everything is in the spirit. And you're just saying things because people look like an Edomite, pale of skin. You know what I mean? He's pale of skins. Well, so what? But did he hear the word though? If the answer is yes, then you got to consider that, boy, okay, he can't be an Edomite because the Edomite can't receive the truth. He even can't receive the truth. So it's impossible. This guy has to be an Israelite. But he might be faking it. He might be acting it, bro. Or anyone that would even try to do that, man, they'll be found out relatively quickly. There's no way a guy's going to be in this thing years and years and years and years, and he just like was faking it the whole time. In every interaction we ever have with the person throughout the years of doing this. Because we don't, brothers don't just meet up at camp on a Saturday or Sunday or whatever. And that's the only time we see. No, we speak with brothers. Brothers are over other brothers. We check in on brothers, and we spend time with brothers, and where we brotherhood, fellowship, and all that kind of stuff. There's no way the guy is gonna go years and years without looking spooky, bro. You know what I'm saying? And like I say, even if that was the case, you might just not. You're just scared, innit? You might just too scared. Even if that was the case, right? You think he gonna make it on the chariot? You think somehow the angels are gonna make a mistake when they're beaming people up, that this guy has been faking it the whole time? You think he's gonna be able to see the Lord and the angels? Bro, you just bugged out. If that's what you think, you just bugged out, innit? Okay, you're just carnal minded. This is the thing of faith, and this is the thing in the spirit, right? And as I say, we use this gospel to find the elect, right? So whoever can hear, right, has to be an Israelite, and that's what we believe, and that's how it's going to be, because that's how it's supposed to be. That's what it is, right? So again, where is it? Yeah, verse 16 again. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God, right? So I say, if the Spirit is resonating with individuals that we come in contact with, man, and indicates that they're an Israelite, deep down in their ignorance, right? Regardless of appearance, that these men are really Israelites. Okay, the Spirit has found them, has revealed that. Whether they come into the truth or not, that's a whole different thing. But the Spirit revealed it. John, book of John. No, that's Mark. 15 and 20. Right, so just on that point, right, it says John 15 and 20, remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also, right? So as I said, we hold the doctrine of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, right? We carry that light for the Gentiles to follow after, to be guided by, right? This truth, right? As I said, these other camps are not holding that torch, right? Because they got a whole bunch of confusion in these different camps, right? They're not a light to the Gentiles at all. All right. But I say, it says, if they have kept my saying, which is Yahushua is saying, right, because they're his sheep, right, they will keep yours also. They also keep the apostles, the men of the Lord's words also, right? They'll be guided by you. Or, yeah, they'll be guides unto them, right? And they'll be guided by us, is what I meant to say. Yeah, that's the right. So, I say it's all in the spirit. They're not based on how they look. All right. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12. And we got here, it says, so that let me read up. Verse 11, right? So wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, right? And this is what I've been saying this whole video. Okay, Israelites have grown up being foreign. Grown up in foreign lands, foreign to the customs, and the heritage, the identity, in ignorance. They've grown up in ignorance, not knowing, right? So wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called circumcision, right? So the circumcision here is speaking about the Jews in Judea, and the uncircumcised is those outside Judea, okay, living these foreign lives, right? They will be called uncircumcision by them, right? Who are called uncircumcision by that which is called circumcision in the flesh made by hands. That at that time you were without Yahushua, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, being strangers, because they were foreign. They were being foreign, grew up foreign for generations. Not being a part of Israel, not doing anything, concerning their heritage, their customs, and nothing like that. They grew up in just strange ways, right? Wild olive tree, you know. This is at that time you were out Yahushua, being aliens from the Commonwealth of Israel and strangers of the covenants of the promise. Right? But the covenants were for them. They were just strange to it. They didn't know nothing about it. The Lord never made no covenant with the heathens, promising them anything, other than not to fucking flood them. Right? The Lord never made no covenant with the other nations concerning, the kingdom of heaven and, all this sort of stuff. There's no covenant made with them. The simple fact is that the Israelites that grew up in these strange lands didn't know nothing about the covenants. They were strangers to it. Okay, but it was always for them. Right? And strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. Right? They didn't know nothing about it. Okay? Let me read a little bit, right? But now in Yahushua Mashiach, ye who sometimes were far off are made nigh by the blood of Yahushua, right? By the remission of sins, right? So the fact that you've grown up for generations and you've been growing up as an idol worship your whole life, the Lord is remission, forgive you for your sins for that. If you repent, obviously, you repent and turn to the Lord, you're gonna be forgiven for all that madness, all the madness your families did and all that kind of stuff. Because you can come in, even though these men in Judea didn't want to let you in. And like I said, you still got that today. You still got Israelites denying others that they can't come in because they're not dark enough, or they got a heathen mother, or whatever, because you're from Africa or some stupidness. Like they got you. There's still people today doing these exact same things, and that just shows you in the spirit, man. History kind of just repeats itself, and those same characters that were there back then are here today, doing the same kind of thing. You got some trying to open the door to everybody. All the nations can be saved, limited or there's limited salvation for the other nations, and then to the other extreme where like nobody else but the Negroes can get salvation. Like what? No, man. Keep to the scriptures. Keep to the scriptures, man. All right. Verse 14 says, "For he is our peace, who have made both one, and have broken down the middle wall of partition between us," right? Because there's been a divide between the Jews in Jerusalem and the Israelite foreigners. It's been a divide for a long, long time. And I said those divides extend even, between the other tribes that left, the 10 tribes that left. There's divides in Israel. But the Lord is bringing us back together. Right? That's what he's talking about. There's no divide between us and the other nations. The other nations have always been just there. Or they've been our enemies or whatever the case. We was never together. You see what I'm saying? But we've been divided because of our transgressions. Right? So the Most High, Yahushua is mending that middle wall partition, right? So again, for he is for our peace, who have made both one and have broken down the middle wall of partition between us, right? So that wall between us is being broken down so we can come back together. All right? So having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, for to him to make himself one new man, so making peace, and that he might reconcile, bring back again, right, both unto God in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby, and came and preached peace to you which were afar off, and to them that were nigh, because we're one people. Okay, this enmity between us, should no longer stand. Right? Because when the Lord establishes the kingdom, guess what? We're all going to be there. All the tribes are going to be together. Okay, we're going to be as one people. That's that whole, taking of the stick. Let me see. Judah fellows. I'm sure that's in there. Oops. Here we go. Ezekiel 37, right? Let me start from 15, right? The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel his companions, Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel, his companions, and join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thy hand. Right, and this is where we get the 12 tribes from, and this is where, brothers from different tribes are coming under this banner together, right, under Yahweh Shai. Okay. That's the point, right? Grab this. Just got a few more left. I'm looking for 2 Corinthians. Seven. All right, so yeah, let me go. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 7. So, do you look on things after the outward appearance? Right, so like I mentioned, these other groups, they got all these stipulations of what an Israelite is. Okay, everything but the word, through the Spirit. They got all these different criteria of what an Israelite is, right? Because they're basing it on appearance, or because you came from XYZ country on the planet that was not America or whatever. That's not the criteria in the scriptures. Like I said, we know that the Israelites have been scattered. Okay. We know they grew up in these different lands, right? So they're not going to be like you. If anybody that's grown up in another country is always different from you, because the land, the country's just different. Language, customs, all of that, right? Mannerisms, it's just different. So they're always going to be different to you. We might say that, America is similar to Britain just because, America is a state of Britain in that sense. They come from Britain. So yeah, you might say, oh yeah, it's similar. So the Negroes in Britain and the Negroes in America, they're the same. But it might not be so obvious if in other parts in Europe, or in Africa. But we know for a fact that when Jerusalem was destroyed, our people ran into the interiors of Africa. Not all of us went on slave ships. Israel is vast, man. We were scattered all over the place. So you mean to say that there's not man in Africa right now that are Israelites? Of course there is. Like Israel was all over the earth pretty much before even Esau took us into slavery. Well, he went around and got all them too. No, he didn't. He didn't get them all. How could he get all of Israel? It's mad. And brought them into America. You're saying Esau was able to take, to grab out every Israelite that ever existed, right? That existed, and bring them all to America. That's not possible. Right? There's Israelites everywhere still. Right? Breeding like crazy. Right? And so, yeah, you're going to find Israelites, come out in these different lands. But it's recorded. So how could it be that, Israel can only come from America, or they could only be dark-skinned, or, whatever? It's ridiculous. You might want to be like a Black Panther group or some shit. You know what I mean? That's just not what this is, man. So again, so do you look on things after the outward appearance? If any man trusts to himself that he is Yahweh Shai, let him of himself think this again, that as he is Yahweh Shai, even so we Yahweh Shais, right? So we're not supposed to base things on the outward appearance, right? Because here's the evidence, right? Pardon me. This is Acts 2:5. It says, and they were dwelling at Jerusalem, Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. So it's already been, what's the word I'm looking for? It's already been stated, for lack of better words, right, that there's Israelites out of all nations. Like they live in these other nations. Like they came to Jerusalem to hold the Passover, no? Because that's what they're commanded to do. So some of these, so you got some Israelites that are living in foreign lands that know they're Israelites, but you're gonna have Israelites that don't know they're Israelites living in foreign lands also, right? That don't come up to keep the Passover and so on, right? But it's stated here that there's Jews in all these nations, right? So they were dwelling at Jerusalem, Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Now, when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? How hear we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born? Right? They were born in these lands, right? But when the apostles and disciples were speaking, they heard them as if they were speaking in the tongue that they grew up in. Right? That multilingual translator, spiritual translator, man. You know? I know Esau's doing the AI thing right now. You know, you man are speaking, you can hear it in your language, so you can understand it. Well, that's what's going on, but in the spirit. They need all this AI shit, right? Computer processing, it was done, right? So yeah, so they had other tongues. They might not necessarily spoke Hebrew, or maybe not very much, but they heard it in the lands that where they come from, right? So, and how hear we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites. Oh, so there's Jacob and Elam in India, in these different places. Of course there is. But if one came, speaking in Gujarati or Urdu or whatever, man, you like, this man's a heathen. Good there, And we don't mean to make fun, but it's just like you would like, these men would just dismiss him because he got, he's wearing a turban, or he's wearing whatever, he's dressing different to you, he's speaking different to you. He's got he might even speak English, but because he's got an accent, or whatever, you man are just like, nah, this guy's a heathen. But what did you do to find out? You didn't do anything. You just looked at him and heard him speak. You didn't check him out with the spirit, through the scriptures. You didn't do that. You didn't do that at all. So what do you know about the person? You don't know shit. Right? It says Parthians and Medes and Elamites and dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, in Egypt and in parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome. Strangers of Rome. Israelite foreigners, but these are all foreigners. Yeah, they're Israelites, but they live in foreign lands. Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians. We do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of God. Right? So Israelites were coming out all over the place, man. Right? And it's even worse now. There's so much more Israelites in the earth, right? The situation is even madder. Right? This is why the gospel has to go out throughout the four corners of the earth, man. Then the end shall come, right? Once all the elect in all these different parts of the world, they receive this word and they're sealed, the end's coming. And the end is coming. There's a lot of people trying to put it off, but it's coming. Right? Because this word is getting out globally, through the internet. Right? Because the mission or flying and sailing to all these different places, that's just a mad task, isn't it? That's just an impossible task. Right? Internet covers damn near everywhere. And where it don't cover, the Most High can relocate an elect member into its vicinity. You know what I'm saying? Right? Because it's the spirit that's doing all the hard work, really. We're just out there giving our bodies as a living sacrifice, man. But we're not actually affecting the outcome of anything. Okay, we're just doing what we're commanded to do. Right? But like I said, we're not here to decide who the elect are, who can receive the shoe, who can't. Right? The spirit is going to decide all of that. Okay, or should I say, it's already decided in the spirit who the elect are. Right? We have just a simple job of enabling them to hear the word. And that's how, men get sealed. Right? But we're not basing it upon appearance. We're not denying somebody just because they look different or they sound different. Right? But we also, on the other hand, know that it's not open to all. It's not open to the other nations. And I said there's a whole bunch of confusion among these different Israelite camps and, in the world, in Christianity and whatever, right? To who can be saved, right? Who are the Gentiles, right? The only people that got it right are the men of GMS. Okay, and that's why we're the true light to the Gentiles. That's just a fact. All right. I had one more, but I'm gonna end it on this then. Where is it? Jeremiah 12 and 9, right? And it tells you here, it says, "Mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird," right? So we're all looking different, man. A variety of looks and languages, all kinds of things. There's just mixture, right? Differences, right? So mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds around about are against her. Come ye, assemble all the beasts of the field, come to devour, right? But again, my heritage is unto a speckled bird. All right, so you say all Israelites don't look the same. And don't all grow up in one place. Right, Lord is bringing Israelites from all over the world. Right, the elect from all over the world to receive salvation. Right, we're not in a position to deny anybody. And it's the same thing that was who was it? Peter. Right, Peter is not in a position to deny nobody. If they believe, right, this is the whole Cornelius thing, right? If he comes across somebody that believes, man, he's what can he say? What can he do? How can he deny that when they're given the Spirit of the Lord upon them, man? He can't do nothing about it. He has to understand, that this is a chosen man of the Lord. And like I said, it just denotes that Cornelius is an Israelite. He was an Israelite in Italy. That's what it comes down to. Whether he knew he was an Israelite or didn't know he was an Israelite, it's all irrelevant, man. Whether he looked a certain way or didn't look a certain way, it's all irrelevant. If the Spirit beareth witness, right, that he's a son of God, then he's an Israelite. Only Israelites can receive this truth. Right? That's what it is. All right, but I'm going to end it there. Like I said, I had all different types of scriptures going on, but, for the sake of time, I'm going to end this one. And Lord willing, I'll do a slightly different video to this on the Gentiles at some other point. But yeah, Lord willing, this has been edifying, and I'll catch you brothers and sisters on the next one. Until next time, I say shalom.